Welcome to Automate Your Agency. Every week, we bring you expert insights, practical tips, and success stories that will help you streamline your business operations and boost your growth. Let's get started on your journey to more efficient and scalable operations. All right, Micah, this week, we are going to talk about HubSpot integrations and automations. Now, I know from working with potential clients coming on board, HubSpot is one of the most popular CRMs that we work with. And the good thing that you can even speak to is how robust their APIs is to work with.
Yeah, it's honestly a great API. It's usually the first question that we get. It's something along the lines of, well, can I integrate X with HubSpot or can I integrate Y with HubSpot? And HubSpot's API is fantastic. So usually the answer is yes. Where it gets more nuanced is, what do you want to actually do with it?
Yeah, and in this episode, we're going to keep it pretty dialed into its automations and integrations with ClickUp, Asana, and Monday. And one thing that I want to really clarify is we're not going to just be talking about the native integration where you can go in and connect the two. We're talking about increased automations, which is why I brought up the API. Is what automations can you do outside of that native integration and build some really amazing things? I mean, even some of the things we were talking about that we do for clients, my mind gets blown. And so let's start with Micah. Why do people want to, if you're in HubSpot, it's a pretty coherent ecosystem. You know, a lot of teams can just do a lot of stuff just within HubSpot, especially for marketing, sales, and service. So why would you want outside automations to take it outside of HubSpot and put it in to a project management system like ClickUp, Asana, and Monday?
Yeah, 100%. So like HubSpot itself is a CRM, which inherently is going to be focused on the sales, the service, and a little bit of marketing. And that's HubSpot's genius is you can do all of those things in one system, but it's not a project management tool. It's not an operations, for running your business. It's for
Hmm.
specific departments, for specific categories and specific workflows. So what happens when you want to do stuff outside of those workflows? The trouble that we see a lot is, hey, my service team is doing great in HubSpot, but what happens when they need to ask something from another team? That team's not in HubSpot.
Hmm.
What do we do? By default, it tends to go to Slack or email or Teams, which completely derails efficient operations of a company. And so that's where this gets into like the native integration falls flat, but we have this advanced capability with the APIs and webhooks that allow us to do much more complicated workflows. Yeah, not
Yeah, and most
complicated is not the right word. It is complex, but simple.
right. And even if those teams are operating out of HubSpot because they are doing email marketing and maybe creating a website or something, is that those are standalone things that you do in HubSpot. That doesn't mean everything is done in HubSpot for those things. And so I'm not talking about an automation here between them, but just talking about how a team might be working within HubSpot, but also working through a project management system. Because if you're in marketing, you have to create graphics, you have to create copy, all of these things that would be along this to go into HubSpot for an email marketing campaign. And so that's why you have these two things working together, but you want them to work together so you're not duplicating work. And so that's where automation can come in play. So, Micah, when we're talking about these automations outside of a native integration, what would be one of the most common automations that we do from HubSpot to ClickUp, Asana, and Monday, and then back to maybe even HubSpot?
Yeah. So let me give three basic use cases. So on the sales side, you might need additional assets, like you were just saying, in order to close a deal. That might be a slide deck from marketing or a proof of concept from the tech team or whatever it might be. So that's a request that's going to come in that's going to go outside of HubSpot. On customer service, when you're managing tickets, you might again need to go to the tech team and get answers. They might not be in HubSpot. They might be sitting somewhere else, like in ClickUp, Asana, or Monday. And then the third one, just for marketing itself, you may need to go out and create assets and manage those. You don't have a great task management system inside of HubSpot. So for each of those, the reason that I bring all three of those up to answer the question, Elaine, is you need to collaborate. You basically have two sides. You typically have like a sales team going to the marketing team saying, "Hey, can you help me produce these assets so I can close this big deal we're gonna get?" And it's not just like, "Here you go. Good luck,
Right,
marketing team."
right.
So there needs to be back and forth. It's very rare that the sales team can make a request that's so complete the marketing team has everything that they need to just produce it and then somehow get it back. But even what's the somehow to get it back to the sales team? And so the most common way that we do things, the most common integration is to go from HubSpot, like a, let's say we have a deal that the sales team is working. They
Mhm,
can click a button in HubSpot, and that could then create a task in a specific list inside of ClickUp that gives the marketing team the information that they need to get started. And then
mhm,
once we have that connection, so to speak, we've already figured out a way to have two-way syncs going on commenting. So the marketing team can work in ClickUp and leave a comment in that specific task, and then that can be sent to HubSpot so that the sales team then sees the marketing team's comment in their deal, they can reply, and then that goes back into ClickUp. So you're not doubling up on user costs. You're not doubling up on teaching people two different systems. You're not causing your teams to work in two different systems. One team
yeah.
can be in ClickUp, one team can be in HubSpot, and it can work seamlessly.
That one is just so cool to me, and, I think about conversations with clients, and a lot of times you do have your sales team operating out of your CRM, which is what you want. If they have to go into another tool, then it's almost a distraction from them and they're not great at typically. I love salespeople. I'm one myself. But we don't like to wear a lot of hats. We like to just do sales and we just want to do what we need to do so that we can close our deals. Well, you have them flip flopping back and forth, things are going to get messed. So if you can just have them running where they run, then they're more organized and the team marketing team is still getting what they need and it makes it seamless. I think that's brilliant. Now, Micah, you in the conversation you were mentioning ClickUp specifically. Are you able to do that same kind of two-way sync with Asana and Monday as well?
Yeah. Yeah. They all have, fortunately, and this is why we focus on those platforms a lot, is Asana and Monday's APIs are also very good.
Mhm.
So it has very similar functionality to ClickUp's APIs and Webhook, which just allows us to have a very similar integration and hookup between the two.
Yeah, I see a lot of HubSpot and Monday teams where those are, and I have certain ones in mind specifically where just that one example that you just gave it is so badly needed. So I'm excited about that. The one that I personally love because I'm a part of it on our side and our team is when you close a deal in the CRM. So in this case, it's HubSpot. The sales team marks the deal as one and then they have to be the ones normally to go in and do some type of communication to kick off that client. Again, do we want the salesperson having to go back and forth or do we want them
Does
to
the
be
salesperson want to do
does
that? No.
they only want to do it because they want to make that client happy. But a lot of times that you have an admin team doing all the onboarding tasks. And this one specifically is one of my favorite is when that deal is marked as one, it automatically kicks off new client onboarding for that client in the project management tool, whether it's ClickUp Asana or Monday. And everything that needs to happen for that client is automatically created in that project for that client for that
Yep.
client.
Yeah, 100%. It's so good. Um, I mean, as soon as the deal is marked as one in HubSpot, that creates a trigger for an automation. So instead of having an admin person going and doing all the manual work, it just triggers the automation that says, well, create this project, create this folder, create these tasks, create this follow up. You can extend that past the project management system. I don't know how detailed we want to get in this conversation. But other things would be like your Google Drive and your SharePoint and your accounting systems for invoicing and different things like that. So you can definitely expand past that. But at its core, you mark a deal as one, and then there's all these things in your project management system based on the deal itself. So based on the product, based on the service, based on any of the custom properties in HubSpot that have been identified or set, you can have the automation run against that logic and go, oh, that's this, and let's create these steps, and that's that, and let's create this project, and then let's notify these people.
So the time that this one saves, and I did the math at GoFanbase whenever I built our first automation doing this. And
Hmm.
what internally here with our team, we were manually doing it in the beginning. And then we set to automate it. And it's very consistent. It's an average of 2 hours per client to onboard them manually. And a lot of conversations that I have with teams is what kind of impact is this going to make for me? You save 2 hours every time you onboard a new client between your team members. That is a substantial time savings.
Yeah. And I think even more than just the time savings, the consistency is so
Yes.
important. Every client gets onboarded the same way, which is
Hmm.
not only a great experience for your clients, but a great experience for your team because they're going to know, hey, those Google Drive folders actually exist. Or,
Yes.
the admin didn't forget to do that. Or all the tasks that I need to do for this specific client, I don't have to go, hey, Elaine, what did the client buy? What are we doing for this one? When are they starting? What's going on with this? Is this actually one? Right? Like
Hmm.
all of that's already resolved in
Yeah.
seconds.
So let's talk about, and you mentioned it in the conversation a second ago about passing through other data. It's not just where it's the client name, you mark the deal as one, and then it creates a task in ClickUp, Asana, or Monday. That's basically a checklist with all of these things with the client name. That's at the core, you can just have that because then you have that consistency of a checklist. But let's talk about a little bit more in detail what kind of data can be passed through on that one deal into your project management system for that handoff.
I mean, honestly, anything that you're saving in HubSpot, HubSpot's really flexible for custom properties. So anything from contact information all the way through to products that were purchased or service tiers that were purchased, SLA information,
Mhm.
anything that you need to get through, even if you're tracking, all right, is the proposal signed? Has the initial payment been made? All of
Mhm.
that could be passed through so that the people executing on the project have all the information that they need. We kind of talked about that a second ago, where a sales team or a salesperson making a complete request. The idea behind something like this is the sales team can be filling this information out in HubSpot as they get it, and even better, automate some of this stuff getting filled out as you get it, um, which leads to by the time a deal is won, you have that bulk of information that can be sent to the next team, and the knowledge transfer time is so low, right? You're not having to do an internal kickoff call. You can auto generate client briefs. You can auto generate the projects and the tasks because you have almost a complete request. Sometimes you would have a complete request.
This saves time in the onboarding, but it also saves time in servicing that client because a lot of times the team servicing that client is not the same as the salesperson. And it may touch three different people depending on if you have like a tier one service and an account manager. Well, you might have two touch points that that client might have. If all of that stuff and that team's not working in HubSpot. So they don't have that information. So they're having to nag the salesperson to get questions answered, or they're underserving or overserving that client for a package that they didn't buy
Yep. Yep.
because they
Absolutely.
don't know. They don't know how to answer it. And so this saves so much time and back and forth in the future because it all gets passed through to the team that needs it. The other thing that I like about this, and then we can move on, is you want your teams, it's the value of time. Is your time valuable in doing things that could be automated for 2 hours? So, what could the team be working on in that 2 hours saved that they couldn't do because they were manually onboarding this client? This is something so straightforward, such an easy build that can be done that saves so many hours of time that that team can be working on strategy, creativity, servicing that client, giving a better experience, and the client isn't waiting to be onboarded. It happens immediately. A welcome email, you mentioned a second ago that it can, we're talking about the specific automation between ClickUp, I'm sorry, HubSpot to ClickUp Asana on Monday, but we can have these other things happen as well with the trigger, a drafted welcome email. All of this stuff can happen immediately versus the client waiting around.
Yeah, it's a game changer. I mean, when we implemented this, it's just now
I
it's
love this
I can't
integration.
imagine going back,
Oh
right?
my God, it'd be
If
such
for
a pain.
nothing else, just the consistency. Because I mean, there's times where we mark deals as one and everything is done and we don't even have to think twice about it. It
Yeah.
just we know everything's going to be in ClickUp. We know the folders are going to be there. We know the announcement in Slack's going to go out. Like we don't even think about it. It would be terrible if every client we brought on, we then had to do all that work. Maybe we wouldn't bring on any more clients. That's not true. We would.
No, no, but it definitely makes it harder. That's my one of my other favorite triggers that we do from a one deal is the announcement in Slack that our team gets to see. And we don't have everybody in the company in that. We just have sales team, account management team, some key players on our exec team, and we get to cheer for each other. And it's so exciting to see, that a new client is coming on board and to celebrate that person that closed the deal. So,
Yeah,
outside of ClickUp, Asana,
absolutely.
and Monday, but it's super fun.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we talked a lot about the sales side with HubSpot and an integration to a project management platform, but customer service and tickets work very much the same way. So instead of a deal, you have a ticket. They both have pipelines, they both have stages. One of the things that I didn't mention earlier, Elaine, is that when you're working on a task in a project management system, generally has a status, right? It's either not started, to do, in progress, validating, etc. Those statuses in your project management system work as triggers that can then update things back in HubSpot. So let's say we've got a customer support ticket that comes in
Mhm.
that might be sent to tech team, and it's a stage in that pipeline for the ticket in HubSpot. So that way, the support team knows, all right, this is we're waiting on the tech team, but that's triggered the automation to create the task inside of ClickUp, for example. Now, as the tech team works and the comments are going back and forth, when the tech team marks it complete, that can trigger it back, create an automated summary, summarize it with AI, add a note back into HubSpot, and then move the ticket to the next stage that says ready to communicate with client or
That is
customer.
super cool. So that example, I mean, that's amazing that we're able to do that. And so that example would be that you're using it as your HubSpot as your service client services ticketing system, but that you need to get answers outside of the people managing those tickets. They don't have the knowledge necessarily to answer it, or maybe they need to pull in a couple of different people that are not in HubSpot,
Exactly.
could push that into one of those tools. Yeah, that's amazing. I could see a lot of scenarios where, the person handling it doesn't know everything about everything and they
Well,
need
and
to
even
get
think of like
information.
how do you train like brand new customer success people or customer service people or anybody just handling tickets, right? Let's say
Mhm.
somebody's out sick. You may just need to get an answer
Yeah.
somewhere.
This is the value of a ticketing system and why I think it's so important because if you didn't have a ticketing system, you're forwarding emails back and forth to your team or you're slacking about it where things get lost and you don't have a history. So, if you're using HubSpot, fantastic. It has a ticketing system built in. If not, there are other great ones out there that can be used. We use Front. We love that one. There's others. So, Micah, one of the things that I was just thinking through when we're talking about these things is how are we building the automations? We were talking about the API in the beginning with HubSpot, but how we're doing this is not a native integration. We're not just going in and connecting the two together inside the platforms. We're actually using an outside third party. And so let's talk about that for a second. We use make.com for almost all of these scenarios. I don't know if you have any that we're using Zapier for.
None that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, most of what we do these days is make, and we'll do a whole episode on this. I think it merits it for sure, Elaine. Just
Hmm.
the difference between Zapier and Make and why we lean towards Make. It's funny, I chat with a bunch of of people almost every single day. And what I hear back is, oh, yeah, everybody I talk to who's building automations is talking about Make, is mentioning Make. And there's a good reason for that. It's really easy to build in. It's really good with error handling. If something goes wrong, it builds a queue. But we'll do a whole episode on this. But yeah, we're typically using Make to connect the dots behind the scenes.
Yeah, and that's the key piece that we're not building custom things. We're not going in with a software development team and building a custom software built to connect these things for you that we do use primarily make.com, which is so fantastic to be the glue between these software platforms and to trigger everything working together. So, all right, Micah, any other thoughts on HubSpot to ClickUp, Asana, or Monday?
No, I would just say, as far as an action item for anybody who's listening, think about how creative could you, if you could have anything between HubSpot and another platform like a project management tool, just think through like what would that look like, because the chances are it's possible. And
Hmm.
so, even if you jot it down in a hand drawn diagram or an outline in a document, that's the best place to start. But just thinking through, I would even say, just don't limit yourself thinking, man, we've got to do this manually, or we've got to have our teams working across all these platforms, or I've got to pay double the fees for all these users on every platform and not another platform. And my team is sick of it. Like, there are ways these days to mitigate all of that.
Yeah. And so if you want to chat more, if you're using HubSpot and one of the project management tools or any of the other software we mentioned, reach out to Mike or I. Our website's biggestgoal.ai, and we'd love to talk about automation.